good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Grossman. I'm executive editor of the Colorado Springs Indie and the Colorado Springs Business Journal. Thanks. Yeah, woo! Let's hear it from me. Okay, thanks everybody for coming out. Have a good evening. So before we get started, I am going to pass the microphone off to, and I got to get the title right, Marketing and Events Director Tracy Woods. She's going to talk to you a little bit about membership opportunities with our nonprofit. So here's Tracy.
Thank you. So if you've been here before, and a number of you have because you look very familiar, you know this spiel. Become a member. Please become a member. Now you say, why should I become a member? Why should I become a member, Tracy? So the nonprofit news model is one that newspapers across the country have taken on in order to keep local journalism local, local business news local. When these things go away, stories like Mike's are not going to get told. Stories like Brother Luck next month are not going to get noticed. So that's one reason. The other reason, and this is big for me personally, is community. For me, my smallest community is my family. My daughter knows this because I say it all the time, you have to participate. And being part of community is communicating and having somewhere where people gather to get information of all types. So if you haven't joined already, please, it's on the inside of the cover, bottom left, there's a QR code. You can snap it, hop on. The best way to support local news, us, is at the monthly rate, $20 a month. It's the cost of a decent pizza. Sign up, give us the stability that we need to move forward. We have been doing a lot of this work for almost 30 years in the community. We have become relied upon by a number of diverse groups in this community, along with the business community, to do the work that we've been doing. So support local news anytime you get a chance. Advertise with us. That's another thing. It is a business write-off, but if you go over and above that, and it's above the cost of what you're advertising, you can make a donation, and that's a different kind of write-off. So part of our perks in becoming nonprofit can be part of your perks in supporting a nonprofit. So if you're prone to supporting a nonprofit, join us, please. But thank you for being here and braving the weather. We are still waiting for more people to come in. Hopefully everybody's safe, and so that we don't hold up everybody here, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, we're going to get started. So we're lucky to have this opportunity to get together every month and learn from our city's amazing CEOs, business owners, and leaders. We want to thank you for supporting the business community and the Business Journal. We're so grateful for the support of our sponsors who make these events possible. We appreciate our ongoing partnership with Phil Long Dealerships. They're back for their third year as the top sponsor of COS CEO. Phil Long has a deep, yeah, give it up for Phil Long. Phil Long has a deep history in our city and an even deeper commitment to its growth and development. Joining us this year, gold sponsor Rodney Galat Jr. and Firma IT Solutions. I don't see Rodney, but I heard he was double booked. Yeah, give it up for Rodney anyway. El Pomar Foundation is a special sponsor, and they've supported this program in the past. This year, they're bringing emerging leaders to the series to meet and learn from inspiring leaders. And I think they were supposed to be here tonight, but maybe they got rained out. So hopefully they're on their way. Our other sponsors include Notes Live, a local and national business supporting the arts and live music, as well as perennial sponsor, Stockman Cass Ryan and Company, providing the best accountants for business needs. Let's hear it one more time for our amazing sponsors. And now please welcome Gina Sacripanti, Chief Communications Officer with Phil Long Dealerships, to introduce Mike and to tell us more about Phil Long, which is celebrating 78 years in Colorado and decades of philanthropic work for our communities. Gina?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I wanted to say thank you to Brian and the team at CSBJ, to Amalgray, and to our fellow sponsors. As Brian said, we are very excited to be the presenting sponsor for the third year in a row, and also to be serving Colorado for their vehicle needs for over 78 years. More important than our dealership's success is our ability to care for our 1,400 employees. That's taking care of them and their families, and they allow us to do great community impact. Just this past month alone, I just wanted to share a couple examples of our community impact, because it is the success of our dealerships that allows us to do all these wonderful things. So last month, our Phil Long EV outlet partnered with UCCS, and we held an Earth Day clinic, and we allowed the students of UCCS to learn more about sustainable transportation, as well as have a chance to ride electric vehicles. So it's pretty exciting to see their excitement. Our Phil Long Hyundai of Chapel Hills location celebrated being the only Hyundai flagship store in the state of Colorado, which is a really honor for us to hold that designation. Our Phil Long Subaru of Glenwood Springs dealership, through their Subaru Share the Love event, donated over $15,000 because they donated for every vehicle sold to Everbridge, which was a local community nonprofit that helped child sexual assault victims get the assistance they needed. And next month, our entire dealership group will partner with COS I Love You to get backpacks, to get that goal of 12,000 backpacks to kids with financial needs, assistance, to get the essential school supplies they need. I think some of you may know that outside of Phil Long dealerships, we also do a bunch of community development work in Trinidad, Colorado. Next month, we are really excited because we will be opening a Hilton Garden Inn in Trinidad, Colorado, which will provide 200 jobs, economic growth to the city, and again, just reaffirms our commitment to revitalizing Trinidad. These are just a few examples of our culture of commitment and a winning strategy to be a 100-year force for good. On behalf of the Phil Long team, I would like to thank those of you who are customers of Phil Long. It's you that allows us to do all the great things that we do in the community. And for those of you who don't remember that this Sunday's Mother's Day, if you need a gift, I'm envisioning something with a big bow on it. Just see me or Justin right here if you need any help with that. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, who not only supports our community in his professional career, but also as a volunteer, having served as a member of the Board of Managers for Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center, assisting with its efforts here in Colorado Springs and in Pueblo, and is a supporter of Mount Carmel Wellness and Community Center, two nonprofits our CEO, Jay Cimino, founded. He is a trusted banking partner of Phil Long. Mike League worked his way up from bank teller to owner, president and CEO of Five Star Bank. Along the way, he learned a lot about leadership. Mike led a management and community acquisition of Five Star Bank in 2015 after serving as its president and CEO since 2007. He started his banking career with United Missouri Bank of Kansas City and eventually served as regional bank president of UMB Bank, Colorado. He also served as executive vice president of A&B Bank and president and CEO of Bank of the Rockies. He previously formed investment groups to purchase Colorado banking institutions, including the 1999 purchase of Bank of the Rockies, which was subsequently sold in 2003. Mike is a past director of the Colorado Bankers Association and currently a director of the Association of Military Banks of America. Born in Northern California and raised in Kansas, Mike said he considers himself a third-generation resident, but his mother's family is from Colorado Springs. League moved here permanently in 1991 and has stayed because he and his wife, Ann, a physician, thought it was a good place to raise their 2 children, and he and his family loved the outdoor lifestyle. Interviewing Mike will be the Business Journal's executive editor, Brian Grossman. Please join me in welcoming Mike League.
All right. Hey, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's get started. So speaking of tornadoes, you're from Kansas.
Oh, yeah, no. Seen plenty of them.
Yeah. How about you walk us through going from California to Kansas to ending up here in Colorado?
The start in Northern California is one that's very similar for a lot of people in this community. I'm an Army brat. My father was stationed at Fort Ord. I was born at Fort Ord. So that's not Carmel, that's not Monterey, that's Fort Ord. So my roots are in the military. My spouse retired as a major 2 years ago in the military, a physician at Fort Carson in charge of behavioral health. So, you know, you are your community, and I've heard community used a lot tonight. You know, 40% of this community is DOD based. They're either veterans, active duty service members, children, family members, or they're DOD contractors who most likely did serve. So Colorado Springs is never going to be able to get away with that. And when you think about it, 46% of our population base has a legacy or roots with the military. So it's very important. It's very important to Five Star. Traveled out of Northern California, was raised in the Midwest by a single mother, and I think that's where I got a lot of, you know, the bearings I have. She was actually raised here in Colorado Springs, and my maternal grandparents lived here, so Colorado Springs has always been home in one fashion or another. And when I had the opportunity to lead UMB Bank's entry into the state of Colorado in May, exactly 32 years ago, May of '91, you know, it was a dream come true to take my career to the community I wanted to be in. So, long story. That's why I'm here, and that's
we
why
just
I've
got
stayed.
started. Yeah.
So,
Talk about how you got involved in banking. What was it about banking that
well,
interested you?
if you really want to know the truth, I never intended to make banking a career. Got out of school, was looking for some work, and I thought I'd like to learn why ABC Sprocket makes money and XYZ Widget loses money, and I'll find the business I want to enter someday. And that's the truth. I took a banking job in the executive training program. I was a teller. I still have my teller stamp. But I was a credit analyst, reviewed loans. I was in the credit department for a year and a half, and I thought I would find what I'd want to do later. And I guess 37 years later, I finally found what I enjoy doing, or maybe I'm still on the look. But that's how I made a banking career. Quite honestly, was looking at what I'd like to do when I grow up. So maybe I haven't grown up.
Talk about Five Star Bank specifically, and
Okay.
what do you think sort of sets it apart? What do you guys do differently?
Well, Five Star Bank, it's all about community. Five Star Bank was originally called AFBA Industrial Bank, Armed Forces Benefits Industrial Bank. It served the military, it served service members. They approached me in 2007 and asked me. They had a broken model that was not working. They were losing money. General Ed Eberhardt, who was the NORAD Northcom commander at Peterson and Schriever during 9/11, happened to be the chairman of AFBA. I had met Ed through Chamber of Commerce events over the years, and he said, "Mike, there's a blank canvas. Can you fix it? Do whatever you need." And I changed the charter from an industrial bank that had 2 products, credit cards and money market accounts, and I said, we're going to reposition ourselves with a community charter, and we're going to be a community bank in Colorado Springs, and we're going to loan to small businesses and people in Colorado Springs. It's a real simple model, but we execute it well. And we did that in 2007, and some of my team is here that been with me not only at Five Star, but at UMB and other banks along the way. So some of these poor folks have been with me 30 years. I don't know how they put up with me, but we executed a plan. We sold the credit card division. We redeployed $75 million into the community and small business loans. And I guess we were too successful at what we did, because around 2013, the parent board in Washington, D.C. said we should sell the bank and refund the capital. They have an insurance company, so it made perfect sense. Sell the bank, reinvest the profits into their insurance company. And I said, yeah, we did too good of a job. I'm going to work my way out of a job. So I'm sitting at some meetings in Washington, D.C., and I raised my hand and I said, no, I think it's a great idea. You should sell the bank. But would you entertain a community-led buyout? Well, I said that. I didn't have any money in my pocket. I didn't have the community behind me. So I went out, and in an 18-month period, I don't think I slept a wink. And I went out and raised $16 million. Wow. And you learn a lot when you're raising capital. Yeah. And ironically, I called on a gentleman. I've been his banker since 1991, off and on, Jay Chimino. And I walked into his office, and I'll tell you, I was scared. And I didn't know what to say. And he looked at me and he said, Mike, if you don't ask, you'll never know. So he broke the ice. So I said, okay, well, would you like to buy X number of shares and invest in my bank? And he did. And I repeated that 137 other times with community leaders and small business owners, and we raised $16 million. And so I honestly believe we are not the only, if not the truest community bank in the state, and our community happens to be Colorado Springs, and we're locally owned and locally managed, and I don't think there's another bank that can replicate that. So that's the start. We've grown from 135 million to I think 380 million. So we've done well. We've earned our shareholders $25 million in the last 5 years. So by any metric, we're a success. But the true success for us is not the numbers. It is the community. I've got a team here, honestly. Mike Herter, I think you first joined with me in '92. David Brockway joined UMB in '07 when I was there. Aileen joined us about a decade ago. I've got a head of loan ops that was a teller of mine in 1999. So we must be doing something right. Our employees don't turn over. I give every employee their birthday off. We know all their kids. We have 55 employees, and I say this, that means I've got 220 issues I'm dealing with a day. Mm-hmm. I've got the employee, I've got their spouse, I've got their average 2 kids, so you gotta stay attached. In COVID, there was one employee who never missed a day and came in every day. That was me. All the rest of the employees I put on an A and B schedule, rotated them, had them in half the week, but I paid them for a full week. We retained. It was really tough during that, but I'd say the core of that group, 90% of them are still with me today. So, your employees come first. They're all in the community. We are about community. It's whether you're volunteers, you're on the chamber board, you're on the District 20 board, you're on Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center board. Here's what I'm going to tell you. The key to this is making those contacts and networking. I sold clothes when I was in college at the Broadmoor Hotel, and first interview I ever got was the chairman CEO of Bank 4 in Wichita, Kansas, because I sold him a tie. I've had some beers with some people 30 years ago, and they come back, and I've been their banker since. I've met clients, customers at my children's school events. So that's what it's all about. And sometimes you sit back and laugh and say, where did this start? Well, it starts in your community and doing these type of things. I've been on too many community boards to even remember, but I would say that every single one of my employees, if they want to get involved in a community event or on a board, I sponsor it. We write the ticket. And remind me to do that at the end, because the Indy and the Business Journal have been essential for the 30 years since I moved back home, and we'll sign up as a member. I guarantee that. So
Be like Mike.
so yeah, it's not the education. I tell our employees, if you have an aptitude to learn and care, we'll train you and teach you what it takes to be a good banker. But and your community can be Eads, Colorado, or it can be San Francisco. It doesn't matter what community you're in. It's just making the most that you can in that community. So that's where we are today. We've moved up to Denver, and we've actually followed somebody down to Trinidad, and we're doing great. We're doing great in Trinidad. There's a lot going on down there if you don't know. So I'd encourage everybody to get down there.
So talk about what you do. What's your average day? Do you have an average day?
Oh, I never have an average day. I come in every day planning to do X, Y, and Z, and I get thrown off my track every day. But what I try to do is enable my associates to do their job better. If they need the resources, they need the support, they need the people. If I can provide them what they need to do their job better, then it works. I was a loan officer in a previous career at UMB, and I was the top producer probably in the entire system. And I loved being a loan officer, and one day I got a call up to Mr. Kemper's office, who is chairman, CEO of the bank, and he said, well, we're making you a bank president. And I said, well, why? That's not going to be any fun. I go from home run hitter to utility infielder. And that's what you become. You really are just managing people. I still like to get out and chase the deals and make loans and meet the customers, but 75-80% of what I do is now behind the scenes and not front. And some days I'd gladly trade that position with anybody in my organization. But I support them to make them better.
Okay. We talked on the phone before this, and we joked a little bit that there's not much going on in the industry, so we might not have much to talk about beyond.
It's, knock on this wine cask. Nobody's failed this week, but, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I think I know banking. And what you've seen came down to three things, I think. One was greed. These leaders of these four banks made horrendously poor decisions. And I could go into the case on each single one. Second, and hopefully if the FDIC isn't listening, but they probably are, it was lax oversight. The issues at Silicon Valley Bank were evident last summer. I had conversations with my examiners last summer on this topic and what Five Star was doing to mitigate it. So the examiners knew what was going on. They did not enforce and push the issues. And then third, and here's the unknown, in banking, insurance, or any business is about risk management. You got interest rate risk, you got operational risk, you got regulatory risk, you've got reputational risk. Well, there's a new risk out here that I think we're seeing identified, and it's twofold. Digital banking. Brian, you can move money, open, close an account on your phone. That technology wasn't here before 2011. And the other is social media. And it's the genie, letting the genie out of the bottle. It's playing with nitroglycerin. Social media created a panic and a run. And the last large failure, Washington Mutual, they lost 2% of their deposits a day. Silicon Valley, SVB, lost 25% or 40 billion of deposits in one 8-hour stretch. And that was fueled by social media. And you see it. I'm not getting on a soapbox here, but social media has attempted to turn elections. Social media is behind wars and conflicts in the world. Heck, look at Taylor Swift. 750,000 Swifties can change the entertainment industry overnight. Look at Reddit, what they did with GameStop. In a meme, they took a little company on a roller coaster ride through Wall Street. So what I'm saying is social media can impact everything, and they've touched banking. And you know, the good news about Five Star, twofold, we're not publicly traded, and I don't think I have a customer who's got 200,000 or 2 million followers. I might have somebody who has 10. But all joking aside, that's a risk that nobody has ever encountered before. So, you know, reputational risk. Nobody wants our businesses smeared with anything like that, but nobody saw this coming. And unfortunately, I think you're going to see it often.
Yeah.
And it's going to cover every industry, every walk of life. So, you know, the mistakes those banks made, why go long in the lowest period of history on bond rates to get a 1.25% yield? We left all our money in Fed funds and got a 20 basis yield. So did these people honestly believe that rates were going to stay low for the next 30 years? What I like to say is one bad decision sank these 4 banks. I estimate it would take about 400 or 500 bad loan decisions to sink Five Star. So we've never gone long in bonds. There's an old saying, good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from poor judgment. Well, you just saw somebody get schooled in experience here, and you know, it's regrettable, but the banking industry never learns. The other thing I'd say, if social media was what it is today back in 2008, when we really had a financial crisis, I think it would have collapsed the monetary system, financial system worldwide, without a doubt. So, unless, Aileen, you've got a couple 100,000 Twitter followers, I'm going to rest easy.
Maybe after tonight.
Yeah.
So there are a couple segues there, but I'll take this one. Your social media observations. One of my questions was, when you look at finance and banking right now, you've got move to cashless, you've got crypto, you've got NFTs, you've got this sudden surge of AI, you know, that's in the news every single day now. What's the future of banking look like, and how do you even prepare for one of those things, let alone all at once?
Well, I mean, who would have thought ATMs would spit out cash in the 70s? Online banking. I think our industry's pretty good at tracking along with technology, and we adapt it, but we don't, you know, I don't loan into or buy investments of things I don't understand, and I don't understand crypto.
Yep.
And so it's easier to just say, hey, I don't understand, we're going to pass. Some banks, Silvergate tried to get into crypto. They folded. They were the first of the 4. Signature Bank told the regulators only 11% of their assets were in crypto when 27% were. They collapsed. So, yeah, you know, they always shoot the pioneers or put an arrow in the pioneers. It's the settlers that survive. So, yeah, we have some people that went out on a limb, and there'll be lessons learned. There'll be after-action reports. But I think what it's going to do is crypto and these things are all going to have to, unfortunately, join the banks in a regulated industry. If you want to offer that, then it's going to be under a regulatory authority. And beware what you wish for.
Yep.
I do spend a third of my time addressing regulatory issues. I could stand on this barrel and it wouldn't even cover the amount of documents and readings we get from the regulators every year. So,
Yeah.
but that's the industry we're in. It's not going to change. And I guess I'd never be a proponent of regulation, but I think we need it, especially in crypto and some of these other forms.
Yeah.
What's the basis? You know, what are you trading? To me, it's a borderline Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just old school, but
Since you have your crystal ball out already, are you watching the debt ceiling situation, and how nervous are you right now?
you know, when I visit my customers, we like to talk about the cost of materials or sales, and I rarely have the global monetary fiscal policy conversations with customers. But since you ask, and my crystal ball is probably broken, I don't think we have to worry about the debt ceiling conversation because we have it so often. And the legislative body just kicks the can down the road. Of course we'll raise the debt ceiling, and of course Congress and CBO will figure out some way to fudge the numbers, but at the end of the day, we're just going to rack up more debts. And what they don't understand is when Fed funds and treasuries were 0.4 and 0.5, we could spend $100 billion a year on interest on our national debt. Rates have gone up 1,200% in 14 months. How is this government going to pay the interest on $3 trillion? They can't. So something's got to give, and until Congress, quite frankly, gets off their ass, nothing's going to happen. And Lawrence Tribe, a Harvard professor, law professor, Supreme Court candidate many years ago, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times on Sunday stating that the debt ceiling is in violation of the 14th Amendment. So what's that going to do now? We're going to pursue the Supreme Court to rule on the debt when this is something the legislative body should be. So there's an old saying, the inmates are running the asylum. Well, that's where we are.
It's Congress.
It's Congress.
Yeah. Should we do an informal poll? How many people are as confident as Mike that they'll raise it? Yeah. Okay. We hope so, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about leadership, I guess, a little bit. What are some successful strategies you've used, both as a banker and just as a leader in general?
Well, I think you lead by example, and you know, there's a picture that I'm proud of. It shows me out with a mop washing an ATM machine. Well, what president does that? Well, one that's going to not go tell the newest, youngest employee to go do it. Lead by example. Mm-hmm. And be courteous. They're simple rules, and that's where you get the buy-in, where you have people that have worked for you for a decade or two or three. Treat people with respect. We do simple things. Every last Friday of every month, I buy all my employees lunch. They love it. They all get their birthdays off, except for one, me. So it's doing the simple things. Listening's the key. I don't need to come in and call on a prospect and tell them how great I am or the bank is. I want to listen to what their business is, and then we offer solutions. So listening is a key. And just experience, like I said, I've made mistakes, and you learn from them. And experience is the best guide. You're not going to learn any of this in the Harvard Business School. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's we take people. You could be a fine arts major. You could come work for us without even a degree, as long as you show the aptitude to want to learn, and we can train you. That's what we're doing. I really don't think of myself as the leader. Like I said, my job is to help everybody else do their job better, and I'm glad to sit in the background too. So I gave up my ego years ago when I gave up my hair. So that's.
Did you always take the lead by example approach, or is that something that sort of evolved over time?
I think that evolved. You know. The first couple years in my career, you just keep your head down and listen.
Yep.
And I've had some mentors. I think the first one comes to mind, Judy Bell. I don't know how many people know Judy Bell, but she owned a bunch of clothing stores at the Broadmoor Hotel. That's where I sold clothes in high school and college. And Judy was the first female president of the United States Golf Association, and still holds the 9-hole women's record. And she's been a great mentor friend, and she always said, do what you love. And I've tried to stay true to that. Another mentor down the road was Gary Liu. The Liu family founded Current Greeting Cards, Briargate, La Plata Investments. Liu family is a great family in this town. And Gary had thousands of employees, but was the most humble man I'd ever seen, and could walk on the factory floor and greet every employee by name without a name tag. So, yeah, it's that courtesy in doing that. And I was fortunate to work for a maverick in banking. Crosby Kemper was one of a kind. They broke the mold. He was the most outspoken person I'd ever met. He took on everything. Now, maybe that's where I learned a little bit of the swagger to be confident. But and then I was fortunate. I grew up around the kitchen table. My father had a manufacturing business, so he'd take me on calls to his customers. He actually used to drag me to meetings with his bankers. So I've been on both sides of the table. I've sat on the other side, sitting here begging, crying, how do you get this done with a bank? So I think I can relate to the customers, and just give back to the community. And you won't see the reward until you've spent the time doing things like this and networking. And I did. I had a beer a couple of Fridays ago. It sounds like I have beers quite a lot, but I had a beer with a guy that 15 years ago we had an idea, and he goes, who would have thunk it got this far and became that? Mm-hmm. And you never know. So network, keep that Rolodex, make these contacts. You never know when they're going to come back. Exactly. I banked Jay Chimino. I banked Mr. Phil Long. I was fortunate to do that. I hadn't seen Jay in 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and I called on him, and he said, what can I do? And he did. So if you don't ask, you're never going to know. So don't be reluctant. And the other thing, the key to our bank is we are responsive. You might not like the answer, but we'll get back to you right away. We don't have a hierarchy. We don't have a 1-800 number. We don't have a bureaucracy. Right here are the decision makers. So we pride ourselves on being responsive. Mm-hmm. And if we want to turn things quick, we can usually give you a pretty good indication of what we can do or not within 48 hours. Then it's putting it together. And that's the only way I can compete against Jamie Dimon at Chase or Wells Fargo or First Bank or anybody. I mean, that's the lifeblood of community banks. And there was a woman tonight who I met who said, yeah, she tells all her people in her class, go meet a community banker because someday you're going to need them. Mm-hmm. And so we're here. And I've been in this community. The first time I was in this community was when I was 5 months old. So yep. I've been off and on in this community for 62 years.
What's your favorite thing about the Springs?
Well, it's changed a lot. I think when my mother graduated from Cheyenne Mountain High School, it was 100,000 people. Now we're 900,000. I've watched it evolve. It's still, I say this all the time, and I'm sitting in my office, and it's a bad day, and I look out my window, and I just say it's another crappy day in paradise, because I can be in North Cheyenne Canyon in 10 minutes. I can be on a trail. I know a guy who worked for me who I think did that every day at lunch. So, no, you've got the great outdoors, and you've got this quality of life. And, if you need the big city, Denver's an hour up the road. If you want to get away, get into the mountains. Yeah, I think it's the quality of life that draws us all here. I mean, most of us could pick anywhere we want to work. Why did we pick the Springs? I think we're all in unison on that.
What's wrong with the Springs, and how would you fix it?
We have a lot of sprawl.
Is that the easy answer?
Yeah. We have an election coming up next week, so I don't want to say anything.
Okay.
But,
Now might be a good time to say.
Yeah, the tail wags the dog. This community has grown so fast and maybe out of control, and I think some points we just have to say whoa and realize what we need to take care of and take care of those things before we're sprawling out east. Well, the beauty of our community is you can't go west, you can't go north because of the Air Force Academy, you can't go south because of Fort Carson. So we get to keep all that beauty on that side, but boy, we could push all the way to Kansas if we keep it up. And the water will stop us, but I don't blame, our bank's dependent, everybody's dependent on a vibrant economy, so I can't bash our growth too much, but I think we need to do it in more measured steps.
Yeah. Okay. Last question for me, and then we'll see if the audience has any. It's your high school graduation day. What sort of advice do you give yourself?
Boy, the world's a big oyster. Go out and I've encouraged my kids at a young age, travel, see things, get a different perspective. When the GDP of somebody in Egypt's $30 a year, how do they survive? We take ice cubes for granted. We take toilet paper for granted. Until you see that perspective, and it doesn't have to be worldwide, it could be anywhere in this country too. Just broaden your horizons, and that's what I've told my children to do, is go out there in the world and even fall down. I'll help pick you up, but never come back and say, I didn't know. Push yourself, challenge yourself. And, as a high school graduate, there's no rush to say, I'm going to do this or that. Take your time. And you're seeing it now. College isn't it for everybody. There are mentorships, there are apprenticeships. This country needs machinists, welders. We need the trades now more than ever, and especially if we're going to reshore all the chips and all the business we've sent overseas, and especially to China. If we're going to reshore this with that Biden's program, we're going to redo our infrastructure, I think there's great opportunities ahead. And I'd be excited to be a high school graduate these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my grandmother came across South Dakota in a covered wagon. She saw a man land on the moon. I said, boy, Grams, nobody's ever going to see the world change like you did. Well, boy, I couldn't be more wrong. I mean, it's exciting. So, be patient. Take your time if you can. Pick what you want to do and make sure it's something you really have passion for.
All right. Any questions from the audience? I'll bring you a microphone.
Well, I'd love to dive back into what do you think the city should do?
Let me get you a mic for recording.
I don't want to be on the mic, but
No. He wants to know.
I'm always curious far enough to have a conversation. As a political leader in the city, and obviously running a community bank, you are that, right? You see yourself as a community leader because you're lending money, you're doing a great job as a bank, you've created an environment that makes even me successful. How can we as business leaders, as people, how do you see us help formulating the things that are wrong in our city that we've all grown to love? We've been here for years, 50 years, some of us all our lives. And we see this path that isn't the right conservative path for our city. Do you have any advice for any of us in the crowd, or maybe as public information, how to take and I don't want to get real political here, but maybe help mold the future of Colorado Springs?
Wow. I know your name, so I could out you, but no, you know, we're all about economic vitality, and we have a great opportunity here. Aileen and I were at the Space Symposium a few weeks ago, and the amount of small businesses coming to Colorado Springs to be part of space, because we have Schriever and we have Pete Space Force Base, and we could be getting agencies that actually let contracts. We can't say no and become a Berkeley, California, and say no growth, because we've got the ability to attract phenomenal people and businesses to the Springs. So don't get me wrong, I think we need to do that, but I think the payback comes in, let's do it right. Let's make sure our infrastructure is right. Let's make sure we have adequate water. Let's make sure the developers pay their share and make sure they build good roads instead of bad roads. And let's, you know, yeah, I hate to say this, but let's make the investment and make those people, the developers, pay for that infrastructure. Right now, they put it on the city's back, and your street and any new development 4 years from now is already buckling. So I think they benefit the most, so they should pay the most. You know, we used to have at the Chamber of Commerce in the 80s and 90s, it was called the Business Initiative Climate Group, BIG. Actually, Mayor Bach started that. And you could go to the chamber as a small business owner and say, hey, we need the fire department to move that hydrant there. We need this or that. And the chamber worked as that go-between between the community and business to get the city and the municipalities to get things done. Maybe we need to go back to that model. And this community's always been the manufacturers versus the developers, and we know the outcome there. The developers have had their way, and they will continue to. And I bank a lot of them, so I've had these conversations with them, but they got to pay their fair share. And these metropolitan districts that they set up and fund, and all that is turning the keys of the responsibility over to the homeowners a couple years later, and all of a sudden they look at these assessments on their property tax bills and they realize, oh, I'm stuck with improving my own neighborhood because the developer left. So, you know, I'm not trying to be I am a capitalist, don't get me wrong, but I think we need to do it in a better way. Any other questions that are going to get me in trouble tomorrow?
Good afternoon. Scott Marble with the Colorado Springs Conservatory. Before a question, a big thank you to you and your bank for what you do, not only for the small businesses of this community, but particularly at this particular time for the nonprofits, because we talk about the military institutions here, but we are also a city full of people trying to do work that supports our community, and most of us could not do that without you, and I will speak personally for David. It's amazing what you do for us around the city in caring for those people both in the arts and in human services, so thank you. And with that, as we're talking about how the city is growing, do you have any thoughts about that public-private partnership that we hear so much about as we talk with other projects that will then continue to attract more businesses? I know that's there have been conversations that the nonprofits could do more to help certain services in the city, maybe in the homeless sector or things, and just your thoughts on how you see those financial pieces maybe coming together.
Well, thank you. It's that's one thing that makes community banks, and I'm not alone, unique. But we have always probably given back 2 to 3 to 4% of our pre-tax profits back into supporting fine community organizations. And I could list off the dozens and hundreds we do, but we consciously give back to the community in that regard because you're what's made us. I heard a term a few years ago and it shocked me. Active duty homeless service member. And you're like, what's that mean? They feed you, clothe you, and put you in barracks. Well, if you're a young soldier and you're divorced, you probably just gave your housing allowance to your spouse and children, and you have nowhere to live. So we have issues in this town, and having served 6-7 years on the Veterans Service Center here, it is scary. And a lot of the homeless people you see are veterans. And it's behavioral, and it's a cycle. If it's behavioral, then you can't get the financial footing to get employed, and then you can't get your housing. So it's a vicious circle, and we can't just address one of those issues. We have to address all three. And, you know, I admire what Jay's done at Mount Carmel. And when I was on the board there, 1,100, 1,200 unique visits a month of people struggling in this community. It's a huge number. And we've got to get up and recognize that. And you look at, 70,000 people, families, dependents, et cetera, that are probably centered around Fort Carson. When you think of the active 25,000 active duty, and then you think of all their dependents, well, where do they go once they've been riffed out of the military? Some go back home, but many stay here. So we have a base here that we're ignoring, and we've got to tackle that. So, yeah, I think public communities is the only way we're going to get this done. And it is nice to see that behavioral health is now mentioned in almost every other conversation when it was taboo. And you used to not be able to say that when you were in the military, or they'd riff you out. And now they recognize it. So now the community has to too.
I just had a question for you, Mike, in light of keeping young people in Colorado Springs. Before, it seemed like everyone went to Denver, went somewhere else, either for higher education or just left. What do we need to do to keep those young people here in Colorado Springs in our community?
Well, that's a good question. Having been raised in Kansas, every child on a small farm community, whether it's Iowa, Kansas, anywhere, moves off the farm and goes to the big city. Yeah, the generation of kids that I grew up with in Colorado Springs, I can count them on one hand that moved back here to raise families. And I think we've accomplished some of that. Now we have a top flight university in UCCS, which we didn't. But yeah, we have to build that infrastructure to want our children to move back here to raise their children. And quite frankly, I have a daughter in Houston and a son in Washington, D.C., and I can't get either of them back here. So, yeah, that's a great question. I think we've just got to do more to elevate our presence and provide the services of the places they're at. And we're playing catch up. I guess what we've done is we've just grown too fast, that we need to look at some of the basic core things to bring resiliency and to bring people into our communities and say this is our community, and then they're proud of our community and they want to be in our community.
They'll come back when they retire.
Well, they can come back and support us.
Any other questions? Yep.
Mike, what advice would you give somebody who is in banking but wants to continue their career in banking? Banking has evolved so much in the last, say, 10, 15 years. What advice would you just give, maybe generally speaking, to those people who want to take their career to the next level?
You got to create some of your own opportunity. And what I've seen, there's two paths in banking. You join one of the big supranationals, and it's a good career, and you're gonna get slotted into these places. Or there's the other group, and I've been in both, and I couldn't go back to a big bank, because in a community bank you get the entrepreneurial opportunities to do everything, make these decisions. You don't have a staff that tells you, we'll go buy your papers and here's your health plan. In a community bank, you get more well-rounded, in my opinion. You get to analyze risk firsthand. I think you get a better customer experience because you're literally with them saying, how do I make my bank work? So I think if somebody wants to continue and make a career in banking, it should be in the community banking side because you'll be more impactful and you will enjoy it more. So, and they're community bank. We're fortunate. You look at it. Cross First came in from Leawood, Kansas. InBank, wherever they were from or whatever they are, they bought Legacy. What I'm saying is the Front Range is going to continue to attract banks, regional, national, global, because we're in a great community. The Front Range is thriving. We're doing well in Colorado Springs. So I don't see the banking industry diminishing any. I actually say, oh, geez, here's another competitor. Alpine just came down. So something's right about our market, and I would not be surprised if you see more entries into our market. So, keep your resume, keep your name out there, do things like this. Bankers want people that are involved in the community. Yes?
We're recording, so yeah, it'd be nice to capture it. Thank you.
Hi, Mike. I just want to say thank you as a military spouse for recognizing the challenges of service members and their families. But I also wanted to ask something about affordable housing. So as a community leader, from your perspective as a community leader, or even your perspective in banking and finance, outside of putting more responsibility on developers, which I believe is absolutely vital, what are some other affordable housing solutions that you think would benefit our Colorado Springs community?
Well, that's been a cause of mine, and what's unfortunate is market rents are driven by the market. And when you see a Class C apartment that can get $700, $800, $900 a month rent, well, that's pricing out the people we need to help. So market forces, the market won't fix it. There's a great Grescio property right next to the Mount Carmel footprint that I tried to negotiate to buy for 6 years, and we couldn't get anywhere with the city because they said it's our duty, Grescio, to get market rents for any of our properties. And we're saying, well, we want to turn around and give it to and lease it, rent it to veterans in need. Well, the market wouldn't dictate that. So I guess the answer really is to go back to the state programs and the county programs and the city programs and leverage what municipal dollars are so we can build affordable housing. And whether it's the mini houses, the little houses that you're seeing growing up, I believe that with the proper incentives, we can build some affordable housing. We tried to acquire it. Now, it doesn't take an expert, and I'm not one, but when we've got 3,000 apartments going up downtown, probably 10,000 going up around the community, something's going to give really soon, and I suspect you'll see prices dropping, rents dropping when the supply and demand gets out of equilibrium, which it will. And maybe that's the opportunity. But yeah, we've priced affordable housing out. And where are you going to go? You can't go down to Fountain and Security, Whitefield. That's where you used to go, and now they're priced out of the market. Are you going to push people to Canyon City and Florence? Yeah, they're already going there. They'll get priced out of the market. So, yeah, that's going to take that community, business, public entity cooperation, and I think it's there. And you can't, I like to take the shots at the developers, but you look at Classic or Norwood, they've put money into housing at the rescue mission. So, Yeah, there's some give back there, but we've just got to, we don't have enough product.
Any other questions? All right. How about a round of applause for Mike Lee? And thank you all for coming out this evening. I know it wasn't easy. You could have washed away. We appreciate it. I do want to thank our sponsors again, Phil Long Dealerships, Firma IT Solutions, El Pomar Foundation, Stockman, Cass Ryan and Company, and Notes Live. Be sure to join us next month. June 14th is the next COS CEO right here with Chef Brother Luck. You may have heard of him. You can find tickets at csbj.com/events. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.